The year is 2002. You've just beaten one of the most amazing games of all time. The credits have come to an end, and as you've just watched our three heroes run off embarking on yet another adventure, you're suddenly transported to a world far away, unlike anything we've seen so far. A sprawling city with buildings towering above you. Not so foreign from what we know of in our world, but paired with the likes of Wonderland, Traverse Town, Atlantica and so on, it is a clear shift in tone. The abundant neon signs are piercing through the night's darkness, and out from the pouring rain an enigma emerges, dressed in a black leathery cloak. This cloak, or the black coat as it's often called, is so goddamn cool. What a sick modernization of the classic cloaks. Almost as if a medieval cloak and a biker suit made a child. It feels so streamlined and simplified by doing away with any typical layering. It's one long zipper from top to bottom, and its relatively slim-fitted torso and waist. The only things to complicate the fit is its two silver drawstrings as well as its chain ornament, which only gives the coat some extra bite. Historically, from my understanding, cloaks were popular during the Middle Ages, and is often linked to the Gothic style as well. The organization coat and the world that never was has always felt like a modern take on the latter, with its tall buildings, spires, gargoyles and cloaks, which would go on to go hand in hand with early 2000s general edgy aesthetics and appreciation. But enough beating around the bush. All this is to say that I love this coat, but I'm also sick of it. All good things must come to an end, and as the title says, I believe it's high time to retire the iconic coat. Off to the final world, I say. Bon voyage. I don't really think this is a massively hot take, but it's also something I've hardly ever seen anyone discuss. The coat, originally intended for Organization 13, has post-Kingdom Hearts 2 way too often defaulted to being used for just about any mysterious and unknown character, with a few exceptions, thankfully. There certainly are instances where it's more warranted than others, but generally it's become somewhat of a clutch. My biggest grievance is that it simply lessens the coat's coolness and uniqueness by having any unknown individual wear it. It becomes oversaturated, and the more it keeps coming back, the less impressive and interesting it is. And it retroactively devalues all its past appearances as well, in my opinion at least. It also robs these new enigmatic figures of having any identity of their own, as they immediately become tied up to the organizations. Their outfits should indicate something about their origin and nature. Not in a way that spoils it, of course, but in a way that creates curiosity and interest. I bet the intrigue around the three mysterious Keyblade warriors revealed during Kingdom Hearts 2's secret ending would have been much less iconic and memorable if they all just wore the black coats. It still would have been somewhat exciting as they'd wield Keyblades, and any unknown figure is always to a certain extent a bit fascinating. But I reckon it would have been far less impactful and interesting. Having them wear Keyblade armors immediately raises several questions that you probably wouldn't have asked had they just wore black cloaks. Questions such as, is there a society of Keyblade wielders we have yet to meet? How many more armored individuals are there? Where and when are these individuals from? Does Xehanort have ties to this group as Xemnas wore a similar armor during his final battles? Will Sora one day get an armor? Or perhaps maybe even this is Sora from the future? Point is that it immediately establishes them as someone separate from the organization, opens up a whole new world and dimension to the game's world building, and is overall far more memorable. In the immediate aftermath of Kingdom Hearts 2, there were perhaps a few occasions where it was a bit intriguing to see new mysterious figures wear the coat, especially after the reveal of number 14. Are there even more numbers than just 14? Were there members prior to Roxas joining which perished or left? Or are these new members aiming to revive the organization? But in the end, that intrigue passed very quickly for me, and I just got tired of seeing unknown black cloak figure number 20. Rather than continuing to speak so broadly, let's take a deep dive and examine each group and individual who's worn the coat and discuss whether I think their usage was warranted or if it was completely unnecessary. As this video isn't a history lesson of how the coat has traveled from the world of fairy tales to the present day, I'll touch on such things where necessary. I'll go through each user by order of release rather than chronologically in universe, as the order of release says far more about the developer's decision to continually rely on it. Organization 13. The coat was designed for the organization, so of course their usage of it is completely justified and, well, just perfect. A mysterious group working from the shadows. The coat reflects that. It's their uniform, but it's also more than just that, as this explains at the end of Chain of Memories. It also protects them from darkness, allowing them to utilize their dark corridors without any worry of corruption. By having a character outside of the organization explain that they need a coat for protection, as well as being in possession of identical cloaks themselves, also suggests that the coat might predate the organization. so it's already set up from early on that the coat can and will be worn by others. Still doesn't take away from the fact that it becomes stale after a while, but it is set up. Riku and Miki. The first two others we see don the coat outside of the organization are Miki and Riku. We already see this in Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 1's final mix secret endings. They receive the coat from Dis towards the end of Chain of Memories, after he's explained its purpose and urges them to also wear it. There's not much here to note either. The reason for why they wear them is well explained. It's also the early days of the black coat anyways, and no fatigue has kicked in yet. So the pair donning the coat doesn't feel forced. Besides, it's just hilarious to see Miki wearing this edgy looking cloak. A perfect representation of what Kingdom Hearts is. I also think having specifically Riku wear it throughout most of Kingdom Hearts 2 is a nice addition. I find that while we're chasing and unmasking Organization 13, it's intriguing to also have outsiders on occasion show up masquerading as the members, further muddling exactly how many black cloaks we're actually dealing with. In the end, we learn that Riku is the only outsider, as he was Ansem all along. But that's not something you can know for sure while playing the game for the first time. So in this instance, from Sora and us the player's perspective, it's actually preferable, I reckon, to have Riku wear the black cloak rather than something else. I also only refer to Riku as an outsider, cause Miki ain't fooling anyone. The Mushroom 13. Kingdom Hearts 2 is the Organization 13 game. Well, besides Days of course, but still. So if there was ever a time to really milk that, this really was it. The Mushroom 13 is just such a fun inclusion. There's nothing here to critique, it's just an amusing addition. They could have had various unique and recolored Heartlesses provide these challenges, exactly as Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix did. But singling out the gimmick mushrooms from Kingdom Hearts 1 and turning them into a sort of parody version of the organization instead, it's just plain fun. I personally find this more fun than doing the exact same thing as Kingdom Hearts 1 did again. Xion, and the Organization 13 Moogle. Xion's a member of the Organization 13, so what else would she wear? She isn't a true member as we eventually learn, but she is presented as one and mostly treated as one, so of course she wears the coat like no notes. Then there's the Moogle merchant within the organization's headquarters. When I talk about fatigue, oversaturation, and the lack of unique identities, well, this obviously isn't what I'm referring to. This is just great fun. Of course he wears a coat. It also raises the very serious question of, is this Moogle a nobody? I am Seagloom. Data Riku. Completely unnecessary. This is where I began to feel that the coat had run its course. Data Riku should have had an original outfit in my opinion. Yeah, it did create a bit of intrigue naturally, that's the point. And in the original coded as well as recoded, we never hear the character speak until he shows up at Disney Castle and reveals himself, making it a bit harder to guess who it might be. This mystery doesn't quite work as well in the recoded movie, however, as you can clearly hear that it's Riku. But back during the days of the original coded, I do recall seeing people speculate that the character could have been Roxas, or maybe even a 15th member. But as I said earlier, I think we could be asking more interesting questions if this Enigma had had a more unique outfit. The actual reason for why they used the coat, as well as why they used Riku's model to begin with for Jiminy's journal, rather than creating a whole new character and a whole new original design, well, it's probably just that they wanted to save time and resources. I get it, but it still kinda annoys me. He could have at least had something that made him more data or digital, as he is a personified version of the journal made real through data. Data Roxas on the other hand makes somewhat more sense though. While Data Riku isn't really Riku, Data Roxas actually is a data counterpart to his original self. No, not that original self, this original self. The game also gets the chance to pull the rug from underneath you when it is revealed that the cloaked figure you met at the Station of Awakening wasn't Data Riku, and the latter only began to show up at Destiny Islands. A twist which only works by having both characters wear the same outfit and be of similar build. So I guess that sort of justifies Data Riku also wearing the coat. But like, couldn't they at least have made it slightly different? Final Semnes wears his zebra coat, which isn't more than just a retexturing of his normal coat, and the anti-black coat also has these interesting patterns to give it its own identity. Couldn't they at the very least give in Data Riku and Data Roxas a digital looking version of the coat? Just something to shake it up a bit. Master Xehanort. We only briefly see Master Xehanort wear the coat at the beginning of Birth by Sleep, but it isn't to obscure his identity, but to simply show that the coat already existed back then too. Ansem, Semnes, and the organization all came about thanks to Xehanort, and thus I suppose Nomura wanted to add in a short scene with him wearing the coat too, as a sort of way to suggest that it might have even been something which he created. As we have come to learn, Nomura likes to ensure a strange level of continuity when it comes to various clothes. We of course eventually learn that the coat predates Xehanort, but I'll touch more on that later. Ansem the Wise. We see him wearing it during Black Points, and his identity is immediately made clear, so why couldn't he just have worn his Dis attire? That's what he wore right before arriving here anyways. There doesn't seem to be a reason for him to hide his identity from Aqua either, as he very quickly removes his hood when we see the continuation of the scene in Kingdom Hearts 3. He is the one which provided Riku and Miku with their coats, so it's not unlikely that he could have had one for himself. But he also seems to not give a fuck about wearing a coat throughout Chain of Memories and Kingdom Hearts 2, despite his own warnings of being tracked by the organization or consumed by the darkness. It just feels hugely unnecessary. Like, it's not a big deal, same with Data Riku, but very small unnecessary instances eventually adds up. Mysterious Figure. The mysterious figure is a bit tricky. On one hand, at the time, it felt absolutely guilty of what I'm critiquing, just defaulting to the black coat for any random mysterious entity, rather than coming up with something new. But on the other hand, we later on do find out that this is young Xehanort, who's a part of the real Organization 13, so it retroactively actually makes sense. I'll give it this. What was slightly interesting back then was to understand why someone else was wearing the coat during this era. Were they connected to the organization somehow? At this point in time, we only know Xehanort to be in possession of the coat, so are the two somehow connected? The figure's weapons as well as its time abilities also raise further questions, such as if this character could possibly have traveled through time. The answer to all of these questions were a simple yes. Or rather a very complicated yes, but yes nonetheless. Anyways, as I said, at the time it felt extremely lazy, but with future context it actually is justified. Or is it? The real Organization 13. Of course these guys wear the coat. They are the organization. But they're a different organization. So, wouldn't it be cooler if they wore an updated version? Just something to differentiate them from the previous organization. Perhaps not in Dream Drop Distance, but at least in Kingdom Hearts 3. Or maybe when they all show up at Where Nothing Gathers, they could have debuted their new updated coat as young Xehanort reveals who and what they are. I think that could have substantially strengthened the real Organization 13 as a new and powerful entity beyond just being Organization Rehash. They still would have kind of been that, but less obviously so.
What is this, Organization Rehash?
The new coats wouldn't have to be something too different either, just something to distinguish them from the original one, and to show that these guys are tougher and more elite than the former guys. That also could have served as an explanation for why they seem a lot more powerful all of a sudden in Kingdom Hearts 3, or at least in cutscenes. Or maybe their outfits had been radically different and they were something inspired by, maybe, the replica Xehanorts, to build a stronger connection between those and the real organization. I'm just throwing out some ideas. As I said, I get why the new organization still wears the exact same coat, but I also don't see any reason as to why they couldn't have worn an updated one, which they changed to, either by the end of Dream Drop Distance or by the start of Kingdom Hearts 3. The anti-black coat. It gets a ton of points for actually looking a bit different, but I also wonder why it looks like this to begin with. The idea, as I see it, is that this is a literal manifestation of Sora's nightmare, and thus takes the form of what currently frightens him the most, which in the case of Dream Drop Distance probably is the resurgence of the organization. It's cool to battle a Dream Eater boss in the same weight class as the playable character for once, but I still reckon they could have done something more with the design. It was at the very least, after having seen a multitude of this coat, very refreshing to see one with some new textures on it, at least. Lee. No. Dylan, Yenso, Evan, and Alias all awake wearing what they wore prior to becoming nobodies. For Lee to wake up wearing the black coat indicates he wore it prior to becoming a nobody. He should have woken up in an outfit similar to the one he wore in Birth by Sleep. It also would have helped to make Lee a distinct character from Axel. Him struggling to get people to say Lee instead of Axel isn't helped by him looking almost identical to his former self. By the time of Kingdom Hearts 3, he just gives up, which feels deliberate by the developers as they know they'll never get the majority of fans to call him Lee. Well, of course people aren't gonna call him Lee when he looks just like Axel. He should have awoken in his Birth by Sleep clothes in Dream Drop Distance. And don't give me any, but he's an adult now, he wouldn't fit his old outfit. Yenso went from having a kid's coat to a proper one. This is Kingdom Hearts, their clothes are often portrayed as magic anyways. And he definitely should have worn his new outfit from the moment he got it in Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm pretty sure the only reason he wears the coat throughout the whole game is so when he reunites with Roxas and Xion, they can all appear together as they did in 358 over 2 days. I suppose the coat is meant to symbolize Lee not being able to begin a new life before he gets his friends back, which is sweet, but I personally feel it would have been just as strong for him to wear his new attire when embracing his lost friends, symbolizing how he's already free from the organization's chains, and ready to free Roxas and Shion from their shackles as well. For whatever it was meant to symbolize, I just find it dull to have so many characters wear the exact same piece of clothes. When the organization menacingly approaches the Guardians of Light at the Keyblade graveyard, it kinda loses its effect when you have a guy in your group dressed identical to the enemies. Put Lee in his new outfit from the start of Kingdom Hearts 3, put Shion and the rest of the real organization in a different coat as suggested previously, and fine, Roxas can wear the coat upon his return as he'd be the only one in this alternate version to still wear it. The Master of Masters and Luxu. These really didn't need to wear it. Of all the various users of the black coat, these two are the ones I firmly believe really shouldn't have worn it. The Key saga is largely disconnected from the Dark Seeker saga, and will seemingly play a much bigger role in the new saga, so having yet another set of characters wear this outfit is just so tremendously boring. When I first saw the organization coats appear in Key, I groaned. The era is presented as the age of fairy tales, the ancient past, and then you see the exact same coats with no alterations, which you've seen a bunch of times already, still plaguing that period as well. I just found it so hard to believe that a coat would live on and exist through so many centuries without ever seeing any sort of adjustment. Of course, Kingdom Hearts is a fantasy property, and not bound by how clothes, architecture, music, anything and everything changes and evolves naturally over time. But even so, this is something Nomura has usually been quite good at, giving each era its distinct fashion style. There are clear differences between Birth by Sleep and Kingdom Hearts 1, with Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3 also having their own unique looks. But in the end, this one issue was accounted for by having the Master of Masters himself hand over the coat directly to Xehanort, thus bypassing the whole topic of the coat surviving through a plethora of years without seeing any changes. However, I still believe that having it be a different design which evolved over time would have been more interesting, and made the Age of Fairy Tail feel like it actually happened long ago. That's something I really enjoy with the Assassin's Creed franchise, while I still was playing those games, how the assassin robe would change over time and adjust itself to fit the various historical time periods. Another issue I have in this particular instance is that the coat just feels too modern for this era, and especially when seen next to the Foretellers. Couldn't they at least have designed a variation that matched the Foretellers' outfit? Have it be primarily dark, very symmetrical to underline his authority over the others, and still of course keep him hooded. Had his design been something akin to what I'm suggesting in my illustration, you would have very clearly pieced together from just one look at him that this is an older iteration of the iconic cloak. Or you could have gone for a more minimalistic, very humble appearance with no zippers, having him come off as some sort of cryptic monk. It just robs the Master of Masters of having a distinct and memorable design. Luckily, he makes up for that with his fantastic personality. I suppose they don't want us to be able to decipher anything regarding the Master yet, but you can still very much make him a complete enigma while simultaneously giving him a different black robe. I just pray both him and Luxu quickly ditch the coats for something else in Kingdom Hearts 4. We see two figures in the trailer wearing it, which I assume are the pair. Unless there's someone else, then dear oh lord, please just stop using it! It also seems a bit weird for the Master of Masters to just hand out an identical coat to his apprentice, rather than giving him a unique outfit, but then again, the Master kinda does whatever he wants. But to end off this section, here's two illustrations of what an alternate Luxu could have looked like. The first one is a very remixed version of the classic coat, with a small poncho-like bit at the top vaguely alluding to the Foretellers outfit, while the second one is a more muted and neutral reimagining, but with still some small references to the Foretellers once again. The Melody of Memory trailer. And lastly, there's the goddamn coat showing up again in the Melody of Memory trailer, just to once again spark theories of who could it be? A lot of people hoped it would be the Master of Masters, though were skeptical of him showing up for a rhythm game. In the end, it was just good old Xehanort, which is fine. We've only ever seen him briefly wear it before, and as he's the leader of the organization, there's a novelty to, for once, see him wear the coat as well for a longer stretch of time. But the deliberate showing of this coat as trailer bait is what I have the most issue with. The coat showed up yet again in the first trailer for Missing Link, but we can instantly tell it's Lushu, so it's not used to spark speculation regarding who's this mysterious black coat figure, as I felt it was in the former trailer. Now, I ranted for quite some time about the lack of other ways the Kingdom Hearts series has gone about to mask someone's identity, so I'll take a moment to quickly appreciate some of the other robes and enigmatic outfits the series actually has given us. Robed Ansem. Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, prior to possessing Riku, has a great and simple brown robe. It's quite unnerving to look at. His upper body is so much larger than his lower, so you're at first wondering what kind of proportions this guy has beneath his robe, before eventually realizing there's probably nothing underneath it. The robe is all there is. Alternate coats. I've begged throughout this video for the organization coats to have some alternate designs, and I've provided some illustrations of what that could have looked like. But we have actually gotten a couple of alterations as briefly mentioned earlier. Granted, they're just texture replacements, but they're better than nothing. Samna's final form, aka the zebra coat, is stunning. I love the various nobody motifs covering his coat, while being in black and white representing the nature of nobodies living in between light and darkness. Then there's the anti-black coat. It's just quite cool for what it is. The iconic coat corrupted by Dream Eaters, and it's unnerving seeing those blank red eyes pierce out from the shrouded hood. The Keyblade armors and the Dark Soldier. The Keyblade armors, when first introduced, was so epic. The armors are of course still insanely badass, and they're a really unique and refreshing take on armor. I've yet to see armors in other media which resembles this. When I say they were epic, I'm mainly referring to that brief period when we knew absolutely nothing about them. All we knew was that they were Keyblade wielders and seemingly really powerful ones. And with this era came Vanitas as well, or Dark Soldier, as he was nicknamed back in the day. A reuse of Riku's dark fit, now in just black and red. No Heartless insignia, but with that striking helmet instead. The game never comments on Riku and Vanitas wearing similar outfits, so I guess the takeaway is that it's just something born from darkness. Maybe the Darknesses will wear something akin to this when they eventually reappear. Maybe some of them. The Foretellers. We feel like we know who they are for the most part, but they're also wearing those masks. Will they ever take them off, or is that just not important? Is what we see what we get, or are they withholding some secrets we have yet to discover? I'm glad we got these designs. They're uniformed yet personalized with different palettes and unique masks, as well as being quite different from all other character designs we've gotten in Kingdom Hearts thus far. They feel very ancient and fairy tale like, which is exactly what the era they came from is. Oh, and then during Quest 940 in Union Cross, something amazing happened. Oh my god, is that a white cloak? I was so stunned and happy when I saw this. Just wonderful. And it's not even just a standard one in white, which would be fine. It actually is a whole different thing. It's more like a dress with a hood. Great stuff, Strelitzia's Ghost. Great stuff. Xehanort's legal guardian. No, I'm not talking about the dark figure, that's his illegal guardian. We eventually learn that this unknown cloaked person is a player character from Union Cross reincarnated, which would have been the main playable character of Missing Link as well. So its animosity is to both hide its gender and appearance so that it literally could be anyone underneath that hood. Rather than shoving the character into the organization code, they actually get a unique design, communicating their advanced age while also purposefully obscuring their identity. Sigurd. We don't know the story of Sigurd, and maybe we'll never know, but he looks hella fresh. Dapper looking bloke. We can't see his face as he wears both a hood and a hat, dude's very shy. I don't know if his identity is obscured for any specific reason or not, but he at least looks like he's off his time. And sometimes someone's lack of context is enough of an enigma to spark a mystery. We currently know very little about Yosora, despite knowing full well what he looks like. Or do we?
But this isn't what I really look like.
And Ven's whole identity was for a long time shrouded in mystery, as we had no clue as to why he was identical to Roxas. Oh my god! And I can't believe I almost forgot despite having referenced him several times. Diz! What an amazing design, what an enigma! Just so cool, so unique, and so incredibly mysterious. So among all the black coat repeats, there are still a lot of good. But that still doesn't excuse the overexposure of the black coat in my opinion. The whole point of this video is to say, I am so tired of this black coat. And also to say that character design matters. Duh, of course it does. I really shouldn't have to say that in regards to a game series that already has so many fantastical designs, which of course is a given seeing as the series is crafted and steered by renowned character designer Tetsuya Nomura. But this design, this one specific design, they seem to just have gotten too comfortable with it, and I struggle to understand quite why. I don't know if it's just to save time on making something new, or if they felt like they struck gold and just couldn't top it. I mean, they did struck gold, the design is peak. But they still shouldn't just settle. Defaulting to the same attire over and over just feels so anti-character design. I've come up with some suggestions for how they could have handled Data Riku, Data Roxas, the real Organization 13, Ansem the Wise, and Lee of course. But at the end of the day, I can sort of, if I squint my eyes, kinda excuse those. It's mainly with the conclusion of the Dark Seeker saga that it really should have been the end of the code, and it's so wild to me that it's still showing up in Kingdom Hearts 4. That's what tipped the glass for me, and retroactively made me look back at all the previous instances and wonder how warranted their usage really was. Because if it all doesn't matter, then fuck it, Terra Aqua Ventus in black coats at a graveyard. The Foretellers, who can tell who's who. Robed Ansem in the 1.5 remix, should have been updated to a black coat. Sigurd, black coat. Kingdom Hearts feeds on mysteries. There's something really fun about not knowing, and us Kingdom Hearts fans absolutely know that feeling all too well. For every question answered, 10 more arises. We're all dying to know the answers, but the mysteries are also what keeps us coming back. It's what engages and drives us. Obscure someone's face and we'll immediately want to know who's underneath. And as many of Kingdom Hearts mysteries revolves around identities, and as the series usually has such a large focus on design, I beg that they please shake it up a bit more than what they're currently doing. Merry Christmas, everyone! For some people, I know they stop celebrating after the 25th, and I don't understand that. I celebrate all the way till New Year, so again, Merry Christmas. And as I usually say, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. I hope it was, at the very least, interesting. I made my opinion quite clear on how I feel about coats. Again, I like him, but could we move on, please? But I'm curious to hear if what other people are thinking about this. Are you guys sharing my opinion to an extent, or can you just not get enough of it, and you feel like it's part of the Kingdom Hearts identity? Every new installment has to at least have one appearance of the code. What do you guys think? What do you feel about this topic? This outro isn't any long. I just love showing my face and saying hi to you guys. And again, thanks for watching, and I hope you got something out of it. Take care. Happy holidays.